Sally, you're going to lead us in the pledge.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Board of Education meeting held virtually in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order. The date is Tuesday, May 26, 2020. Ellen, can you take roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Good evening, everyone, and I hope you had an excellent holiday weekend. Mr. Cassio? Mrs. Evans?
Here.
Mrs. Granato?
Here.
Mr. Lesser?
Here.
Mr. Michaels?
Here.
Mrs. Paradise?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Vice Chairperson, Mr. Healy?
Here.
Chairperson, Mr. Carey?
Present.
And Weathersfield High School Student Representative, Mr. Isaac Santos.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Ellen. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Stoley, will you please lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Stoley. Mr. Emmett, is there any student staff recognition?
Yes, there is this evening, Mr. Carey. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here, albeit virtually. The second board meeting in the month of May is a special one. It's one of those bittersweet, and it's really predominantly bitter tonight, unfortunately, because we can't be together to honor our retirees. So this evening, I'd like to take the opportunity to at least recognize our retirees, tell you a little bit about them, and although we can't be together here physically, just to give them a pat on the back and a thank you for their service to the Weathersfield Public Schools. So first and foremost, I'd like to recognize Mike Goddard. Mike Goddard was our part-time residency officer housed right outside my office at the Stillman Building. Mike was hired in 2009 as our part-time residency officer, and he was often behind the scenes investigating cases where families were accessing education services in Weathersfield while not actually residing in town. Mike used his many years of experience as a Weathersfield police officer in monitoring cases. Mike's thorough investigative practices, coupled with his knowledge of residency rules and commitment to compliance, made him an important part of the district. His efforts have saved the district thousands in per-pupil expenditures over the past 10 years. In retirement, Mike looks to spend more time with his family, especially his granddaughter, and we wish him well in his future endeavors. Our next retiree is Doreen Corsair, Emerson Williams Media Specialist. Emerson Williams Elementary School would like to recognize and congratulate Miss Doreen Corsair. At Emerson Williams, Doreen worked as the Media Center Technical Associate. Doreen retired back in December of this school year. She was responsible for coordinating and managing all aspects of the gorgeous Emerson Williams Media Center. She was entirely responsible for the circulation of books among the students and staff. In addition, she was the one who helped to purchase the books the EW students loved year after year. Doreen always got so excited about the books in the Media Center, and her enthusiasm definitely rubbed off on the EW students. Doreen initially spent 2 years in the Weathersfield Public Schools Human Resources Office and then spent the last 16 years at Emerson Williams. Doreen cared so deeply for the staff and students at EW, and Doreen, we thank you so much for all you've done at EW for the staff and students, and we hope you know how much the Emerson Williams community appreciated you. Our next honoree is Karen Janey, kindergarten teacher at Emerson Williams. Emerson Williams Elementary School would also like to recognize and congratulate Mrs. Karen Janey. For those of you who know Karen Janey, you know that when you look up the term kindergarten teacher in the dictionary or an encyclopedia, you will see a beautiful picture of Mrs. Janey. Karen is a beloved and well-respected kindergarten teacher at Emerson Williams Elementary School, and today we're celebrating her for 42 years of dedicated service to the Weathersfield Public School System. Karen is retiring at the end of this most unusual school year. Her professional learning throughout our distance learning plan has been phenomenal. Karen is the most quintessential sing-song kindergarten voice, as well as the most powerful teacher look. Karen began her extensive teaching career in an open classroom at Highcrest Elementary School. She taught at Highcrest for 9 years, and then she stayed home to raise her own children for several years. When she returned to work, she was hired to teach kindergarten at Charles Wright. After 2 years at Charles Wright, the Webb Kindergarten Center opened and all kindergarten classrooms were moved to that elementary school. This was a very creative and exciting time in Karen's career. Karen came to Emerson Williams when Webb was under construction for a year, and the best part of Karen's long career in Wethersfield is the people she's met over the past 42 years. Former students return as parents, their parents return as grandparents. Former students are now her colleagues or spouses of her coworkers. Karen is so grateful for the meaningful, personal relationships she has enjoyed throughout the years, and the Emerson Williams School community will miss Karen so much. Karen, congratulations. Our next honoree is Barbara Whiteman, elementary teacher at Charles Wright Elementary School. Barbara Whiteman began her teaching career with the Wethersfield Public Schools in the fall of 2003 with a bachelor's degree in elementary education, a minor in psychology, and an additional degree in occupational therapy. She was hired as a long-term substitute in a 5th grade classroom at Highcrest. Her success brought her another long-term substitute position in the spring of the school year in 1st grade. By the fall of 2004, Mrs. Whiteman, then known as Barbara Kurleza, I hope I got that name right, was well known and was hired at Highcrest as a 1st grade teacher, where she served in that capacity until the spring of 2011. Mrs. Whiteman continued her service to the Wethersfield community at Webb Elementary School from 2011 to 2016, and finally at Charles Wright, where she served as a 6th grade, kindergarten, and then 1st grade teacher for the last 4 years. Barbara has a great love for her students and their social emotional development, desiring each to become independent young people. She never fails to participate in spirit days, and she gets down to our children's level and makes learning fun. Although departing from the Wethersfield community, we're confident that Mrs. Whiteman will continue to be an inspiration to others in New Hampshire and to the youth in schools in the Bahamas. Mrs. Whiteman will be greatly missed by her colleagues, students, and our Wethersfield community. Also this evening, I'd like to recognize Miss Wendy Davis, the administrative clerk at Charles Wright for the past 10 years. Wendy Davis began her experience as an administrative clerk in the Wethersfield Public Schools in March of 2008, when she served as long-term substitute clerk at Charles Wright for the remainder of that year. In August of 2008, having become familiar with the position, she was hired as Charles Wright's administrative clerk, where she served the Wethersfield community for 10 years up until her retirement in November 2019. Winnie brought humor to the office and routine that was highly depended upon by us all. But alas, this Rutgers University graduate with a bachelor's degree in economics is now finding more time to spend with her grown children and her grandchildren while continuing to run the family business. She has been and will continue to be a very treasured and missed member of the Charles Wright community. Our next retiree is Miss Bonnie Allen. Congratulations to Bonnie Allen on your retirement from Wethersfield Public Schools. Miss Allen has been a special education teacher at both the Silas Dean Middle School and Wethersfield High School. She has supported her students through the resource room environment and has helped many students achieve academically, socially, and emotionally. Miss Allen supports her students both in and out of the classroom. Her efforts have enabled many students to receive their diplomas from Wethersfield High School. Miss Allen, congratulations. We'd also like to recognize this evening Mary Kotak, special ed teacher at Wethersfield High School. Special congratulations to Mrs. Mary Kotak on her retirement from the Wethersfield Public Schools. A proud graduate of Southern Connecticut State University, Ms. Kotak has supported Wethersfield students through her work as a special education teacher in the Alternate Day Program, ADP. Mrs. Kotak has endless patience and perseverance and is able to love and care for students who are difficult to love and care about. She has made a profound impact on many students who would have dropped out of school if not for her interventions. We wish both Mrs. Kotak and the New York Mets the best in retirement. We'd also like to recognize Mr. John Pryor, Wethersfield High School paraprofessional. Congratulations to Mr. John Pryor on his retirement from the Wethersfield Public Schools. Mr. Pryor has served our students as a paraprofessional. His loyalty towards the students is exemplary, and he's provided great guidance for them. Often he'd go above and beyond to help students with whatever they needed. Mr. Pryor also served WHS students as the advisor to the debate club, where our students excelled under his direction, and we wish him well in retirement. And finally, last but not least, this evening in our retirees to be honored, we honor Diane Tobacco, paraprofessional at Webb Elementary School. Diane Tobacco served as a paraprofessional in Wethersfield for many years. Over that time, she supported a wide variety of students with diverse needs. Staff and students, wherever she worked, benefited from her positive attitude, patience, and generous spirit. Staff especially appreciated her professionalism, her flexibility, and her unwavering focus on helping her students be successful. It was a pleasure to work with Diane, and she will be missed. We wish her well in retirement. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would join me in a clap, a round of applause for our retirees. Also this evening, as we prepare to wrap up the 2019-2020 school year, I'd like to recognize someone who works with us. Again, this would be something where typically I would have him come up to the podium and receive a certificate. Unfortunately, we can't do that virtually, but I'd like to recognize this evening Mr. Isaac Santos as our Wethersfield High School Board of Ed rep. Isaac, I've been at this as superintendent, finishing my 8th year. So I've had 8 different board student reps. And I will say, as an advocate, as a voice for the student body at Wethersfield High School, you are second to none. You have a gift. You have a gift to be able to bring people together, and that is a gift that will serve you well as you move on to the University of Connecticut. So on behalf of the Board of Education, our students and staff in Wethersfield, we'd like to say thank you, Isaac, for a job well done.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least this evening, in terms of staff-student recognition, it's another one of those bittersweet times here when we talk about this pandemic and what this pandemic has done to the day-to-day operations of this district. Typically speaking, around this time, we're all gathering over at the Pitkin Community Center for our annual Dollars for Scholars award ceremony. The Dollars for Scholars program generally gives over $120,000 of scholarships to our students that are pursuing higher education or technical school throughout Wethersfield. This year, I'd just like to say congratulations to all of our Dollars for Scholars winners. We're very sorry that we could not be with you to celebrate that, but we want to recognize the great achievement that you have attained. So, Dollars for Scholars graduates, congratulations and good luck. And with that, that's staff-student recognition this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. Moving on to approval of previous minutes. May 22nd, 2020, regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. Elaine?
Elaine?
Take her off.
I'm muted, sorry, guys. Move to approve the minutes of the board meeting, the previous board meeting.
A second. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Abstain.
Abstain, sorry. Going too fast?
So noted. And did Mr. Michaels second or Mr., I was looking down.
Mr. Riley seconded.
Oh, sorry about that, Mr. Riley.
No problem.
Thank you.
Very good. Public comment. We have 2 emails from public comment. Let me find them. Hold on, sorry. There's no one waiting, right, Mr. Emmett?
That is correct, sir.
The first email is from the safe grad, Miss Michelle Lavoie, and she wants me to read in the record. Dear Chief Citran, Superintendent Emmett, and Principal Moore, in an effort to get the class all together in one place while practicing social distancing with the executive committee of the Safe Graduation 2020 are purchasing signs like the one shown below. It was our plan and hope that these signs will be placed where we were thinking either the Cove or the Green, the Cove being most memorable and where the kids would have and traditionally should be graduating on June 12, 2020. We realize each year graduation takes efforts and planning, not just for speakers, speeches, design and maintenance, but mainly for the safety of all, including our students. That being said, we understand all decisions, as unfortunate as it's been for this class, and as disappointed we are as parents that the students have not been able to participate in so many memorable and traditional senior activities. We know that it has been on behalf of our families and kids' safety. However, the motorcade is the last one events these seniors have. Traditionally, it has been from the Weathersfield High School to the Cove, passing over the South Scene Highway. That being said, I'm sure you can understand the immeasurable hurt we all have upon learning that this tradition is being stripped from our students' senior experience. This letter is an attempt to beg for the reconsideration of the Weathersfield PD to show support for our seniors. Please allow the motorcade to continue east on Knott Street, passing over the South Scene, bearing right on Hartford Ave, then passing the Cove, continue on the Main, then heading west up Wells toward Walcott, turning right on the Walcott and left back into the high school, or right on the J back into the high school. I have been told that crossing the South Scene Highway is an issue. I implore you to treat our graduates with at least the minimal respect that was granted to the protesters who marched through the town, acting disrespectfully toward everyone in their path. These kids are currently the pride of our small town. They deserve at least a small measure of respect. The Cove and the Old Weathersfield community is on board with this support via social media. This class, born into the world just after 9/11 and graduating during a global novel virus pandemic. I ask that you consider this small gesture in a minute window of time, an hour, granted to these kids. Imagine the lasting and incredible impact and feelings of community they will experience when they see their signs together in one place, standing where they should be standing as the class of 2020. Respectfully submitted, Michelle Lavoie, Executive Chair, Safe Graduation 2020. The next board comment comes from Kelly Orsini. She writes, my question is in regards to the high school motorcade is the timing. I don't understand why it's starting at 3 p.m. Many parents are working or just returned to work, and really the thought of requesting time off is unacceptable. I'm reaching out to request that you evaluate the timing and consider changing it later in the day so as to take any further pressure off the parents. Sincerely, Kelly Orsini. And there's no other callers, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Carey.
All right, so public comment is over. Thank you. Moving on to communications, Mr. Emmett.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Good evening again, everyone. I just want to mention that it is IT Appreciation Week this week. I think our information technology staff goes above and beyond to make sure that our kids and our teachers have what they need to succeed. So we have a little video clip I will share with you if you haven't seen it yet. We have a variety of different little pieces for the IT team this week. And again, I'm going to give a shout out. They're off camera right now. I'm the only one here in council chambers. However, Derek and Trish, who are live streaming this evening, have been with me for every single one of our board meetings and have been a huge resource in making sure that these meetings go off successfully. So Derek and Trish in the back, thank you very much. And I got 2 thumbs up. So that's a good thing. And our IT team, just so you know, speaking of IT, your support of the Chromebook initiative to get those Chromebooks in and not have any gap has been successful. Last week we received our shipment of 2,000 Chromebooks. They have been placed over at Webb in the gym. They have been socially distanced. And then today the IT team, along with some of our crossing guards, who are being paid during the pandemic, have gone in to help unwrap those Chromebooks and begin the process of imaging them and getting them ready to go out into kids' hands. So with the IT team, we say a huge thank you. And again, the work that they've done during this pandemic and going to distance learning cannot be thanked enough. So thank you to them. With regard to closure and picking up materials, over the past 2 weeks, we've had our teachers into classrooms to begin to gather things up, whether it be their personal effects, curricular materials that they need for the rest of distance learning, as well as getting student materials wrapped up. We as an administrative team recognize that there needs to be closure. This pandemic has hit everyone hard from a social, emotional standpoint. It's traumatic. It's traumatic for adults, and it's certainly traumatic for kids. So our principals are working in conjunction with teachers to set up times where families will be able to come in by grade level, to be able to do a drive-through, to be able to see their teachers, albeit behind masks, but to see their teachers, pick up their materials, and say farewell for the summer. So that information will be coming out from the schools. So again, it's just one small token to say we miss you kids and really wish you were here. So that will be forthcoming. With regard to graduation, as you know, graduation over the course of the weekend, I know was all over social media. From the perspective of the timing of 3 o'clock was a request that came forward from the police chief looking into the fact that we may have north of 200 cars as part of this motorcade. Looking to do it earlier in an effort to avoid rush hour was the thinking behind that, so that's where that came from. In addition to that, with graduation, where we are right now is we are working on the logistics on the jacket delivery, the diploma jacket delivery. Diplomas are going to be mailed. We're in the process of getting those envelopes right now. All diplomas have been signed. Myself, Mr. Moore, and today Mr. Carey finished the task, so diplomas are ready to go. So we'll have more information with regard to the motorcade. Ms. Bellis, Mr. Moore's assistant, is going to be getting out a Google form for students to sign up for the motorcade. It is going to be critically important that students sign up so that we have an accurate count of how many are going to be going through the motorcade. There's a lot of planning that goes into this, and there's also the process of staging. So our next graduation committee meeting is going to be Thursday. We're actually going to we've been doing all virtual. We're going to Wethersfield High School so we can map out the route, we can map out the amount of space we're going to need, and the whole process that we're going to work on with regard to this graduation. It is complex, but we are doing everything we can to make sure we honor our seniors. They deserve it, and we're going to do the best that we possibly can. We're also going to make sure that it's safe and it's orderly, and sometimes we need to take direction from the experts outside of our realm of expertise. So, and traffic control is not my area of expertise. However, making sure that you get your diplomas and you move on as a graduate of Wethersfield High School certainly is. So we will do our best. Also, I just want to bring everybody up to speed with regard to the lunch program. Our lunch program continues to serve anywhere between 250 to 300 students per day. We are looking at the potential of expanding it into the summer. I do understand in meeting with Bobby Schultz from Chartwell's on Friday that while the federal government has approved a waiver, I understand the state of Connecticut has not approved a waiver to serve lunch to all. It will end up being only for districts that maintain an aggregate of 50% or higher of free and reduced lunch eligible students. We are not at that point. Certainly if that changes, we'll let you know. We'd love to be able to serve beyond, but at this point in time, it doesn't seem that it's going to be feasible. And with that, that is communications this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. Moving on to action items. Recommended approval of the updated policy 6100, credit for online course, reference to Mr. Healy.
Oh, I'm on mute. Okay. Thank you. Apologize. Sorry, I had problems here myself. Okay. All right. You got the memo from, you got the memo on the background redlined addition. So, and I don't even see the motion here, I'm sorry for that. But the update on this is, relates to credit for online courses to address distance learning opportunities offered during the current pandemic and any future long-term school closures related to a community-wide emergency. The Policy Planning Committee met on May 7th to discuss this policy update, and the committee then forwarded this policy to the full board. First reading was May 12th. The administration of the Policy Planning Committee recommended that the action be taken at the regular meeting on May 26th to approve the policy. So I make a motion that we approve the policy as previously read on May 20th, so that we can move forward these credit for these online courses.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just throw it to Mike if anything else you want to add, Mike, on this, but this is just the completion of the process for the the distant learning requirements that we need.
Yeah, this is an update to an existing policy that encompasses the pandemic. This is a different way of offering credit that all districts are forced with facing at this point in time.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none with a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next recommended motion is the approval of the extended unpaid leave of absence for employee number 904467, reference 3, Mr. Lesser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Weathersfield Board of Education approve an extended unpaid leave of absence for employee number 904467. This request is for an additional 1 year unpaid leave extending through the 2021 school year.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mrs. Granado. Mr. Emmett, do you want to provide background?
Yeah, certainly. This individual took an unpaid sabbatical leave last year to pursue a 6-year certificate degree. At this point in time, she has not finished it. Where typically I wouldn't support something along these lines, given our budget situation and where we're at. We felt that this provided us some additional flexibility. The employee was certainly willing to go either half a year or full year. For us, for continuity, for our students, the full year was the best way to go. And again, it gives us a little bit more flexibility with regard to budgeting at this point in time. So we supported this. In the end, we'll have a staff member coming back with the 6-year certificate in reading, which we think is very valuable.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. Anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, with a motion and a second on the floor, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes, Ellen. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to reports and discussion items. Please check your packets for meetings, any that are scheduled, make sure you attend. If you can't attend, please let your committee chair know. Board of Ed meetings held, student programs and services on 5/19/20. Mr. Healy.
Just to summarize, for most of the people that are here tonight were on that call. We got a very extensive and excellent presentation by, I apologize for that, for the distance learning efforts that are going on in each level of our school system, elementaries and high school, middle school, etc. Is very thorough. We also got to talk a little bit about the surveys that have been going out to parents and staff on how distance learning is going. We were encouraged by the overall positive nature of how people are dealing with the pandemic in terms of their dealing with teaching or being with their children at home, getting work plans done, feedback from teachers, some of the work the teachers are trying to do, and improvising depending on the situation. Our participation rate is around 85%, around there, which is is good compared to many surrounding school districts. But we're still working hard on that 15% where we're having issues of connectivity and participation for a variety of reasons. But overall, I think the board members who are on that on that call, that subcommittee, we're encouraged and proud of the efforts our teachers, administrators, parents, and students are making with this this new challenge. And that I assume at the end of this, we're going to be doing a lot of talking and mulling over data and doing more outreach to figure out, if we have to go back to this again in the fall, or we had to go back to it in the after the fall. We don't know. That we've learned a great deal, and I think our administrative team should be complimented on having the foresight to move forward with it earlier rather than later. And as much as it's not a replacement for the in-class experience, we're doing very well with the cards that we were dealt. If anyone has anything else to add to that, that's sort of, I hope, a adequate summary of that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. Next meeting held was the CREC Council on 5/20/20. Ms. Granato.
Okay, the CREC Council met on Wednesday, May 20th, for a long virtual meeting. The CREC Council is the Capital Region Educational Council, of which Wethersfield is a member, with 35 other surrounding towns. The council is responsible for the regional magnet schools and Project Choice. So bear with me on all these pieces to it. The CREC annual meeting was first on the agenda. An important part of this meeting was the year in review by Greg Florio, the CREC's executive director. Greg spoke of the teacher residency program that CREC has instituted with the goal to add more diverse teachers in our schools. He spoke of their preschool program. Greg told of the successes of the CREC Impact program, which is a high school for students who may be disconnected from their education, and it offers a different model for them to succeed. CREC also focused on social and emotional issues to help students be successful in school. They have, there was a presentation on their adult ed program, which focuses on ELL adult learners. And last, their presentation was on their distant learning and the lessons learned as they move forward. Immediately following the annual meeting was the regularly scheduled monthly CREC Council meeting. The report from Patrice McCarthy, which is my favorite. She's the legal liaison for CREC and CAVE to the state legislature, and she's always interesting. She stated that all work is now being done under the governor's executive orders. There will most likely be a special legislation in session this summer. The Commission of Education continues to work on school openings. No date has been decided, and Patrice spoke that his decision will be based on health data at that time. And the last note, tuition for the magnet schools paid by the towns is $4,500 for a student at an elementary school and $5,100 for a student in a secondary school. They've made those the same for no matter what magnet school you go to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Granato. Next meeting held was a special Board of Education meeting on May 21st, 2020. And that meeting is where we hired the new principal of Webb Elementary School. And I believe he's being onboarded as we speak. The next meeting was the Finance and Operation Committee meeting, May 26th, 2020, tonight. Mr. Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Yes, Finance and Operations met before our Board of Ed meeting today. Looks like we are coming in at $512,000 under budget. Some of those areas where we're seeing that savings is a reduction in substitute teachers due to distance learning, a decrease in instructional maintenance and repairs, and some savings due to the amendments of the transportation contract. The district is pretty confident, while we may see a few $1,000s here or there for the rest of the year, the 512 should be a pretty safe bet as to where we'll come in for the remainder of this year. And that full breakdown and summary is available online.
Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Moving on to meeting scheduled, the Weathersfield Early Childhood Collaborative Meeting, WEC, is scheduled for June 8th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. There is no unfinished business. Mr. Chairman, has anyone signed on for public comment?
No one has signed on, Mr. Carey?
Thank you very much. Moving on to board comment. Any board members wishing to make comment? Bobby?
Well, I just have two hopes. Number one is I hope that everyone remains safe and healthy. And also in that hope that policymakers realize how important our schools are. And my second hope is that the committee that is putting the graduation on, I know they put a lot of hours and a lot of work into it, but they're making it as grand as possible. I plan on getting a chair and finding a place, if that's what the board members do. A small town like this, graduation is a very important occasion. So I hope that is being done in the grandest fashion that we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Granata. Anyone else with comment?
I just have a question, Chuck. Michael, and the number Bobby shared with us for attending the correct schools, has that gone up?
No.
No, it hasn't gone up. The 4,100 and has always been that number we paid for students attending, because we pay that.
Yes, it has gone up. They've set it for this next school year.
Okay, so the elementary was, what are we going to pay for those kids, Bob? 4,100?
4,500 per student for any of the elementary
45?
prep schools. And 50
something.
for any of the secondary schools. Doesn't matter. They used to have different prices.
Correct.
Right. Okay, that's what I was confused about, Bob, because there used to be different numbers. And Mike, we've got that all budgeted. Do we know how many kids are going?
Yeah, we have that budgeted, and it's always one of those where we have kids that come back in from magnets, and we have kids that move in that are going to magnets. So that's, I mentioned
Okay.
early during staff school
'Cause I thought-
recognition with regard to the residency officer. That's one of the roles of the residency officer, to make sure
Yeah.
that people who say they live in Weathersfield live in Weathersfield. Yes.
No, I was just like taken back a little because I didn't remember such high numbers that Bobby gave, and that Bobby explained it, so that's fine. Bobby's not, I'm not questioning you. I just was like, whoa, that changed because it didn't correct for years. So thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone?
Michael, on the motorcade, is it one child per car?
We're hoping that what happens with the motorcade is it's the graduate surrounded by his or her family in the car
Okay.
and remaining
Okay,
in the
that's-
car. That's the key piece, with the
Yes.
exception of the graduate. And to Bobby's point about it being grand, we certainly want to make it as grand as we possibly can. But for me, I also have to make sure that it passes muster with the Central Connecticut Health District and that it meets the executive orders. That's the challenge here. So we'll continue to do the best we can. The reason that we want parents involved, typically parents are not involved in the motorcade. We want parents to be part of the experience. And I cannot gather, in an open location, I can't gather that many people within the executive order. Keeping people in their cars, the Central Connecticut Health District said that will work.
No, I thought you were going through all those steps, and I appreciate it, Mike. I know your hands are tied in so many ways this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's,
But there was a lot on Facebook on it, and I don't think everybody realizes that the CDC dictates to you more than you can give, so I just wanted to bring that out so people realize that your hands are as tied as everybody else's.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about it from a perspective of like cluster analysis, where, I don't want to be the focal point of an outbreak in Weathersfield, where they go back and the epidemiologist for the state of Connecticut does a cluster analysis and finds that it was our graduation ceremony where we saw an acceleration. My goal here is to keep everybody safe. We've done a fantastic job with regard to keeping people safe and healthy, our students, our staff, but I will tell you, we've had some staff members and we've had some families that have been impacted by COVID-19. And although the weather's getting nicer and, people are getting out, that social distancing piece from Central Connecticut Health District, I hear it in and week out. I've been meeting with CCHD every single Thursday since February 27th. I still don't hear numbers that are going down. Our infection rate in Wethersfield has gone up. Last count last week, 239 infected in Wethersfield and 9 deaths. So it's real, and it's something that we have to take seriously. So we're trying to strike the balance as best we can.
I appreciate all you're doing on that. It's tough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paradise. Anyone else with comments? Mr. Lesser?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too wanted to say a big thank you, Michael. As the parent of a graduating senior, I know you've had to balance a lot of different requests, and thank you to you and your team. And also a special shout out to Isaac, who I know has tried hard to represent the students and the graduating seniors and their thoughts and goals, and also to balance safety with an appropriate celebration.
Yep.
So Michael, thank you and your team, and Isaac, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lesser. Anyone else? All right, seeing no comments, I just want to end by thanking all the retirees for all their hard work and efforts in the Wethersfield Public Schools. I greatly appreciate it. And I've known Miss Davis pretty much my whole life. I grew up with her kids. And it was great to see her when I'd go into Charles Wright to get my own kids. So best of luck to all our retirees. Seeing no other comments, can I have a motion to adjourn?
You have a comment from Isaac?
Oh, he didn't speak up. I called him out last meeting. I didn't want to call him out this meeting.
Waiting for the call out.
Oh, sorry, Isaac. Isaac, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett and Board of Education members, for allowing me to represent the student body as the Wethersfield High School, or the Wethersfield student representative. It was an honor and a privilege. And I'll be sure for the next meeting, I'll have a more formal statement, since this is right now. But in the school, students are wrapping up on last-minute assignments, as we are due to have all assignments handed in by June 1st. Seniors are excited to trade in their school supplies, their Chromebooks and uniforms for a cap and gown, yearbook, and diploma jacket. They're especially excited for the motorcade that will be occurring June 12th. But, however, we do have a bitter moment this weekend for the seniors, as their senior picnic and senior prom was supposed to occur this Friday and Saturday. However, they keep their heads up as they are excited for what the future has to hold. To wrap up, one of our seniors, Kaden Joyce, is creating a class of 2020 documentary film based on our 4 years of Wethersfield High School. The film is expected to be released sometime soon after graduation. An exact date will be determined soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lesser. A second?
Second?
No, go ahead.
Elaine, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Be safe. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.